Mr. Kirby, with respect to our journalists who were denied visas to participate in this part of our presidency, Mr. Kirby also said that Russian journalists are propagandists and nothing more than that. Without anything, they have nothing to do, he said, with American so-called democratic views of freedom of speech. Of course, there's the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, apparently means nothing in practice. And perhaps it would be useful to consider how things are with freedom of speech in the United States. I've heard that Tucker Carlson has left Fox News. It's a curious news. What is this related to? One can only guess, but clearly the wealth of views in the American information space has suffered as a result.
This is my first video update from Old Town, Nicosia, Cyprus on this Wednesday morning. Let's talk about some news. So what is the big story that we need to talk about? What was the big story from yesterday? Well, Joe Bidenopoulos announced that he will be running for president in 2024. They had no one else to go with. The Uniparty, the permanent state, they had no one else to run, and so they had to go with Joe Biden. Unbelievable. 70% of Americans do not want Biden to run again, a recent NBC poll showed. But they're going to run him. They are going to run him. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is also seeking the presidency in 2024, he will be running against Joe Biden. On the Democrat Party side of things, he tweeted this yesterday: "I have known and liked Joe Biden for many years, but we differ profoundly on fundamental issues such as corporate influence in government, censorship, civil liberties, poverty, corruption, war policy, among others. I look forward to engaging him in debates and town hall meetings in a primary election that is honest, civil, and transparent. I invite him into a new era of respectful dialogue in these times of division." I really, really hope that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just playing the politics game with this tweet. I really hope he is just playing the game, because I have known and liked Joe Biden for many years. That's not a good look, RFK Jr. That is not a good look. But maybe you're just being diplomatic. You're playing the political game, so you have to say that you've known and liked Joe Biden. But oh boy, that is not a good start to your tweet. And then actually believing that Joe Biden is going to engage with you in debates and town hall meetings in a primary election that is honest, civil, and transparent. Come on now, Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Do you actually believe that the Uniparty, the Democrat Party, the permanent state is going to allow you to debate Joe Biden? To go one-on-one with Joe Biden in a town hall meeting scenario? It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. We did a video on the Duran yesterday, me and Alexander, and we talked about the firing of Tucker Carlson. And I believe that there are many reasons for why Fox News and the Murdoch family fired Tucker Carlson. I think many things came into play. I'm not sold on the Dominion thing, but maybe that played a role. Maybe this lawsuit that this booking production assistant person, I forgot what her position was on the Tucker Carlson show. Maybe her lawsuit played a role. No doubt the January 6 videotapes that Tucker Carlson released and did many shows on, no doubt that played a huge role. His stance on Ukraine. He's the only mainstream media host that calls out the warmongers, the neocons that are pushing for escalation in Ukraine. I mean, he's done shows segments dedicated to Victoria Nuland, the only one that calls out the neocons and their escalation in Ukraine. The only mainstream media host that calls out Zelensky and his corruption. I mean, he calls Zelensky a strip club manager, a dictator, running a country that is the most corrupt in Europe. I mean, he says these things. He actually calls Zelensky like a mafia boss, a dictator who wears a tracksuit, a dictator who dresses like a strip club manager. I mean, Tucker Carlson says these things on air for the most popular show. What was the most popular show on cable news? So I'm positive that played a role. I'm positive many things played a role in the dismissal of Tucker Carlson. But in the show that we did on the Duran, me and Alexander, we came out with the belief that the main reason that Fox News fired Tucker Carlson is because of the 2024 elections. That's the main reason. And the fact that Biden announced his campaign in 2024, he officially announced that he's going to be running for re-election in 2024, a day after Fox News fired Tucker Carlson. In my mind, is no coincidence. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. And if you believe that Fox News and the Murdochs did not know, were not told that Biden is going to officially announce his re-election campaign on this day, therefore, you guys need to get rid of Tucker Carlson because we can't have Tucker Carlson talking about Biden's re-election, well, then I've got an elevator to sell you in Cyprus, in Old Town Cyprus. Of course, Fox News knew that Biden was going to announce on this day. The reason they have to get rid of Tucker Carlson, is because you can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on Joe Biden as Biden seeks re-election in 2024. Because Tucker Carlson is going to talk about Biden's catastrophe in Ukraine. He's going to talk about Biden's catastrophe with the dollar, with the USD. He's going to talk about how the U.S. has become isolated on the world stage. He's going to talk about the petrodollar and how Saudi Arabia is moving towards BRICS. He's going to talk about lockdowns. He's going to talk about January 6th, and that's going to upset the Uniparty. You can't have Tucker Carlson talking about all these things as Biden seeks re-election in 2024, especially when you have a Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a viable candidate running against Biden. Can't have that because the greatest fear, the nightmare scenario for the Uniparty and for the permanent state is an election where you have Trump on one side and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the other. They will not accept that. They cannot have that. They will do everything in their power to prevent that. And so what did the Uniparty say? What did the permanent state say? They decided, look, we'll deal with Trump. We'll find a way to deal with Trump. But right now we have another problem. We have to run Biden. That's problem number one. We have to run Biden. And we're going to have to run Biden with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. opposing him. And that's a problem. That is a problem. And so they decided, get rid of Tucker Carlson. We can't have Tucker Carlson on air talking about the massive, huge catastrophe that is and was Ukraine. We can't have Tucker Carlson talking about the huge catastrophe that is de-dollarization. We can't have Tucker Carlson talking about all of these things while we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. right there waiting in the wings to challenge Biden for the Democrat Party nomination. You can't give RFK Jr. a platform, a voice. You have to clear the path for Biden so that they can get over their first hurdle, which is getting the nomination into the hands of Biden. That's their first hurdle now. Secure the nomination for Biden. And yes, we would like to marginalize Trump. We would like to have a scenario where it's like Nikki Haley versus Biden. That would be their dream scenario. But for now, let's deal with Trump later, and let's focus on clearing the path for Biden and marginalizing RFK Jr. And Tucker Carlson, he did an interview a week and a half ago with Trump, and 4 or 5 days ago, he did an interview with RFK Jr. And that was it. That was the big no-no for the Uniparty. They said, no way. This guy, this number one cable TV news anchor, he's going to actually give Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr. a voice, a platform. That's why I believe they got rid of Tucker Carlson. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they got rid of Tucker Carlson and then the next day Biden announces. And so you're going to have a neocon Fox News, you're going to have a neoliberal MSNBC, and you're going to have, I don't even know what CNN is, the Clinton News Network, the Intel agency, the three-letter agency news network. So you're going to have these news networks, which are pretty much the same thing. Where they differ is on cultural, social issues. That's where they will be allowed to differentiate themselves. On alphabet stuff, on trans stuff, on race relations. They'll be allowed to debate in that area. That's going to be their boundaries, their box. When it comes to warmongering or de-dollarization or the petrodollar or anything like that, Ukraine, Taiwan, Russia, China. When it comes to any of those things, the military-industrial complex, big pharma, they're all going to say the same exact thing. Where they're going to be given a little bit of flexibility to go at each other is going to be on the cultural, social stuff. That's the setup. That is the setup. And so I'm going to read you a Twitter thread from an account at Amuse, blue check mark, at Amuse. And I think that at Amuse confirms my thinking, Alexander's thinking, the Duran's thinking as to why they got rid of Tucker Carlson. Everything from now until 2024 in the United States should be viewed through the lens of a presidential election. Every decision that is going to be made, every action that's going to be taken should be viewed from the lens of election 2024. And so, at Amuse says this, source at Tucker Carlson's prior $1.6 million per month contract has as much as 18 months remaining. Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch and Carlson were in the middle of negotiating an extension through 2029, when the Murdochs decided to bench him instead. They don't want Tucker going anywhere, and they're going to force him to sit on the bench for months as they recover from his departure. Venomuse says, Tucker Carlson's contract was signed in February 2021, running through 2024 or 25. The desk is reporting 2024. As a result, Tucker will be benched throughout much of the presidential election, and speculation is that this was done very much on purpose. Tucker had a non-disparagement clause, so he won't be able to say much. Hopefully, Tucker has an out, as this would be very bad for the GOP. And it has a link to an article from the desk. Reporting, 8 sources tell Rolling Stone that Fix News, he means Fox News, top brass, has been stockpiling incriminating information on Tucker Carlson. Fox is blackmailing him to ensure his silence. Reporting, both Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon have hired Brian Friedman to represent them against their networks. He represented Megyn Kelly, and given that Fox agreed to pay his full contract, he may be working to ensure Tucker is free to start something new. The way these contracts usually work is that as long as Fox pays Tucker, he can't go anywhere else. They have the right to bench him. They paid him $20 million a year for this right. Now, Tucker's agent might have included an out that requires them, Fox News, to use him or lose him. We will find out. You see, they were going to sign him up until 2029. We have reports that the Murdochs were going to renew his contract and extend it up until 2029. So what changed? What changed? So that's an update on the Tucker Carlson situation. That's my take on things. I believe that the main reason for his firing has to do with the elections. They can't have Tucker Carlson reporting about Joe Bidenopolis, Greece's favorite son. They can't have Tucker Carlson giving a voice to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and they want to keep Tucker silent up until 2024. That's how I see things. So let's now move on. Let's move on and let's talk about this South Africa story. What a bizarre story this was. So yesterday, we got word that South Africa was going to quit the ICC, the International Criminal Court. They were going to withdraw from the Rome Statute. And they were doing this so that Putin could travel to South Africa in August and attend the BRICS conference. And then today, we got word that South Africa will remain an ICC participant. President Cyril Ramaphosa misspoke when he said the country would withdraw from the court, his spokesman clarified. So what changed? What changed? He misspoke? Really? Really? Come on now. Come on, man, as Joe Bidenopolis would say. Something changed. Something changed, or someone spoke to South African officials. And they said, don't you dare withdraw from the ICC. Don't do it. Because if South Africa were to withdraw from the ICC, well, a lot of other countries would also follow South Africa's lead. And they would withdraw from the ICC, and it would make the ICC worthless, useless. Someone put pressure on South Africa, and they said, don't you dare withdraw from the ICC. Don't do it. What a bizarre story this turned out to be. 19 countries have requested to join the BRICS bloc ahead of the upcoming BRICS summit. The BRICS, as it stands, currently contribute more to global economic growth than the G7, with countries such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Iran showing interest in joining. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, also Venezuela. What do these countries have in common? Oil. Oil, that is what they have in common. The petrodollar, the US dollar reserve currency. And all of these countries are looking towards BRICS. You can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on a story like this as Joe Bidenopoulos seeks re-election. You can't have that happen. So that is a big story. Let's talk about depleted uranium, another big story. The UK Ministry of Defence says it has no obligation to help clean up areas contaminated by radioactive munitions. British depleted uranium is already in Ukraine. This is according to Armed Forces Minister James Heappey, Heappey, James Heappey. Let's call him James Happy. According to Armed Forces Minister, UK Armed Forces Minister James Happy, who is going to tell us some very unhappy news, some unhappy statements. In response to questions from Scottish MP Kenny McCaskill, Mr. Happy confirmed on Tuesday that depleted uranium munitions for the UK-made Challenger 2 tank had already arrived in Ukraine, though declined to comment on Kiev's usage rates for the rounds provided. We have sent thousands of rounds of Challenger 2 ammunition to Ukraine, including depleted uranium armor-piercing rounds, he said, adding the weapons are now under the control of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the AFU, and that the Defense Ministry does not monitor the locations from where depleted uranium rounds are fired by the AFU in Ukraine. Well done, UK. Well done. We're going to give Ukraine depleted uranium, and we have no idea where this depleted uranium is going or how it's being used or anything. And we completely wash our hands of any responsibility of this depleted uranium. We take no responsibility in what's going to happen with this depleted uranium, how it's going to destroy the environment, how it's going to destroy the lives of civilians in this region in Ukraine where it's being used. If it's even going to be used in Ukraine, maybe it's going to hit the black market. Who knows? But as the UK, we're giving over our depleted uranium to the Zelensky regime, and we're not responsible for anything. Well done, UK. Well done. The Russian embassy in the UK, they responded to the statement from Mr. Happy, and they said it has by now become self-evident that the West intends this country to become not only an anti-Russian military shooting range, but also a radioactive landfill, with all the ensuing grave consequences for the health of local residents and the environment in the region. And the UK is not responsible for any of it. Unbelievable. An unbelievable statement from this defense ministry spokesman, Mr. Happy, this armed forces minister spokesman, Mr. Happy. An incredible statement coming out of the UK government. Remember the story that I did 2 days ago when I was in Ayia Napa on how Ukraine is passing laws and legislation. They've actually passed legislation to clamp down on social media posts, to criminalize social media posts that are critical of the Zelensky regime. And I said that this is an important story because the way things are moving, the way things are going, the collective West is becoming more like Ukraine, and Ukraine is becoming more like the collective West. And that's why a story about the Zelensky regime criminalizing social media posts and stuff like that is something that we need to keep an eye on, because if they're doing it in Ukraine, most likely they're going to do it in the collective West. They'll try to pass similar legislation. Well, we have this. Just in, the EU designates 19 big online platforms, including Twitter, subject to stricter content moderation rules, threatening hefty fines or bans in the region if they deviate. Basically, the EU is coming along and they're going to all the big tech platforms and the big search engines, and they're saying, if you guys publish, allow users to publish content that we consider to be disinformation or misinformation or whatever, well, then we are going to put very hefty fines on you. And the fines are going to be significant from what I've read, like significant fines. There you have it. The Ukraine is becoming the collective West, and the collective West is becoming the Ukraine. Let's do a couple of more stories and we'll wrap this video up. You can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on this, by the way. You can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on the censorship that is taking place in the EU. Nope, can't have him talking about that. Ukraine proposes to stop direct gas supplies from Russia to the European Union if the flows bypass the Ukrainian gas transportation system. According to Kiev, such sanctions will allow to suspend the operation of all other pipeline routes that are now capable of transporting Russian natural gas to the European market. The Zelensky office noted that this will put an end to the use of the Turkish stream. So basically, Zelensky is telling the European Union that they have to close all pipelines that deliver gas from oil and gas from Russia to Europe, completely shut them down. And the only one that they should keep open is the one that passes through Ukraine. And I wonder who's going to make all the money from the transit of gas and oil from the sole only pipeline passing from Ukraine into Europe. Who's going to make all that money? I can tell you who's going to make all that money. Good idea. This is a very good idea. I like this idea. Let's tell Van der Crazy to close every pipeline, but just keep my pipeline open. This way, I make many money to buy much homes. That's who's going to make the money. Oh boy. Can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on that. That's for sure. Can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on Zelensky's oil and gas schemes. Nope, that would be unacceptable. How about the churches that they continue to burn in Ukraine? The temple of the canonical UPC church was burned down last night in the village of Milievo, Bukovina, in the Chernivtsi region due to arson, the church announced. Yep, the Zelensky regime burning down churches. They continue to burn down churches. Can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on that. Nope, can't have any of that. And finally, before I get to my clown world, First Republic Bank share price plunges over 50% as it lost more than $100 billion in customer deposits. $100 billion in customer deposits. First Republic Bank. This was one of the banks that was in trouble when the issues with Silicon Valley Bank came up a few few weeks ago, a month ago, and First Republic Bank was the bank of very, very high net worth, wealthy individuals, and it had some problems, but it made it through. It seemed, at least we thought that it made it through. I believe it got like capital injections from, I believe, J.P. Morgan or some other banks, and they propped up First Republic. But now, 100 billion gone. Big problem. Big problem with the banks. Can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on that as Joe Bidenopolis seeks re-election. Can't have Tucker Carlson reporting on the financial banking problems. Not while Biden seeks re-election. Anyway, let's do a clown world and we'll wrap this video up. And in this clown world, we'll talk about the make-believe president of Venezuela, Mr. Juan Guaido. U.S.-backed Venezuelan opposition figure expelled by neighbor. Politician Juan Guaido entered Colombia in an irregular manner, the authorities said. So the make-believe president of Venezuela, Mr. Juan Guaido, he traveled to Colombia in order to attend some sort of conference. From what I understand, it was like an anti-Maduro conference or something like that. And he traveled to Colombia to attend this conference, and he was kicked out of Colombia because of irregularities, something wrong with his paperwork or something like that. And they took Juan Guaido to the airport, put him on a plane back to the U.S., and that's that. Kicked him out of the country. And this was the one-time make-believe president of Venezuela. Remember Juan Guaido? He was at a State of the Union address in Congress a few years back, and he received a standing ovation from the Republicans and the Democrats, and everyone was cheering on Juan Guaido as the real president of Venezuela. That was just a couple of years ago, and now he travels to Colombia and he gets kicked out of the country. Taken to the airport by authorities and placed on a plane back to the United States. This is the fate that awaits the make-believe president of Belarus, Tikhanovskaya. This is her fate. This is the fate that awaits Zelensky, if he's lucky. If he's lucky, this is the fate that awaits Zelensky. Once the U.S. is done with you, once the neocons are done with you and they have no use for you, you're on your own. You're on your own, Juan Guaido. You failed to overthrow Maduro, and so we're cutting you loose. You're of no use to us anymore. And now he can't even travel to the neighboring country of Colombia. Unbelievable story, an unbelievable story. The make-believe president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. And pretty soon Venezuela, I imagine that pretty soon Venezuela will be in bricks. All right, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble and Rockfin, BitChute and ODYSEE, as well as Telegram, and go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. I am wearing my Duran lightweight hoodie with the flag of Kenya for today. Take care.